Here's my question, and I hoped one day I would actually be able to ask you this question.
Oh, we're out of time.
Here's my question. If we're certain that we do create our own ideal scene, our own reality, my question is, how can we collapse the time frame for that thought we put out there to the moment we're actually living that ideal scene? How can we shorten the length of time that it takes?
Well, you gotta admit you want it too.
Yeah. And I have identified, just through reflecting, I've noticed a trend in my life that for some reason, seems to be a 2 to 4 year lag based on things that I've created.
Sometimes the lag is helpful, closing of the gap is helpful, in that more contrast causes you to fill in more details. And so your creation becomes more vibrationally complete before you start moving toward it. Actually, it's just because most of you like the drama is the reason that you do that. But the answer to your question is, how can I shorten the time distance between the desire that I've launched vibrationally and my ability to recognize it, is by improving your ability to recognize it, because it's all perceptual. And so by improving your ability to recognize it, that means you want to be in the receptive mode more often. That's what we were talking about. If you meditate regularly, quiet your mind, feel detachment, allow your vibration to rise, now you're more often in the receiving mode. And the more you're in the receiving mode, then the more impulses will lead you to things that will lead you to things that will lead you to things. But the reason that you don't really know that that's happening already with you is because in that receiving mode, you see, it works like this. So contrast happens. You know what you don't want, you know what you do want. You launch the rocket, and then you do what you do to line up with it. You click into place vibrationally, then it manifests. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Then it manifests. But now this is the most important dynamic. Not only did what you ask for manifest, but a whole new set of contrasting experiences is now surrounding you, which is causing you to launch another, which you line up with and accomplish, and another which you line up with, accomplish, and another which you line up with and accomplish. So you are continually refining the details of what you're asking for. Sometimes what you're asking for is an emotional release rather than a physical thing. And so even though the physical thing didn't happen, you got the emotional release. But because you hadn't clearly identified and isolated what you were going for, then you sort of missed the clues. And so you missed the celebration that we're all having in your motion forward. We've been offering this analogy recently, and it really applies here. Because this is the distinction about you that we want you to leave this room knowing above all other things that you hear from us here today or ever. If you look at the manifested world today, it's easy to sort into piles of behavior and creation and having. In other words, there are lots of lifestyles and philosophies that you could identify and label the population of your planet with. And most humans spend most of their time trying to do that. So there's all these piles of Republicans and Democrats and straight people and gay people and this religion and on and on and on and on and on and on and on, as you pigeonhole and identify and stand usually in your pile, pointing out the imperfection of the other piles. That's usually the purpose of the piles. Not always, but usually it's the purpose of the piles. And we want you to look through the eyes of Source and realize that there are really just two piles. There's the in this moment under the influence of Source pile, and there's in this moment under the influence of something else pile. And in every one of those piles, there's some of each. Doesn't matter how people have differentiated themselves or what they are using to push against or to stake their claim on rightness or goodness or bestness. There are only two piles, and that is in this moment, what influence am I under? So when you think about that, and only that for just a little while. Am I under the influence of my inner being or not? Which means, how do I feel? Am I lighthearted? Do I feel frisky and fun? Do I have love in my heart? Is love running down my cheeks? Am I funny? Do I have good timing? Am I glad to be alive? Am I eager to get out of bed in the morning? Am I tuned in, tapped in, turned on? Because when that is how you are mostly, then what happens is there is almost no time between the identifying of something wanted and the realization of it. Almost as fast as you can think it, something will come to evidence it. We, for a while, were playing games with you. We'd say, make a list of things that you're not worried about and just focus on them for a little bit and then watch how fast the universe brings those things to you. But if you take your issue that you've been working on for a long time, and that's what you focus on, then you bring your complicated issue forward. It's an issue, so you're not under the influence, and so it's a struggle, and so then it seems like it takes a really long time. And so here's the really powerful, important answer to your question. Humans, where did you get this? Humans, we know where you got it, but we don't want to spend a lot of time on talking about where you got it. Humans, and we don't mean to sound so blameful, but humans, what you do is you stand in almost a perpetual state of defensiveness because of all those piles. All those piles make you defensive because there are people in other piles looking at you. And because you're empathetic, you can feel them looking and you sort of kind of know what they're thinking. So you're picking up on that and then you feel defensive about it. But you got to understand, there is no assertion. There's only attraction. So when somebody thinks something and you feel defensive, it's not their offense that's getting you, it's your defense that's getting you. It's your pushing against what you think is their unwanted stuff in you that holds you in the place of not being under the influence of your inner being, because your inner being does not do that. Your inner being adores every pile. Your inner being even adores the part of the pile that's under the influence of source and the part of the pile that in this moment isn't under the influence of source. So how do you close the gap? You get under the influence of source. And the more you are under the influence of source, the faster things unfold for you.
Are we better served to focus on specific tiny little details of how we want certain things? Or does that actually push it further away? Because
what a
we
good
want
question. It depends on whether you're under the influence of source or not. If you're under the influence of source, the more detail, the sweeter it tastes. If you're not under the influence of source, the more detail, the more you want to spit it out. Isn't that true? It's sort of like knowing when to push on the gas. Once you got control of the vehicle, then go really, really fast. But until you've got control of it, slow down and get control of it. And so the rule of thumb is the better you feel, the more detailed you want to be. The worse you feel, the more you want to go general with it. You see, the details have already been identified by you. Your vortex, there's enough in it to keep you busy for 20 or 30 lifetimes. And while you are continually adding to it, that vortex is ripe and ready to begin delighting you. It's time for you to cash in your chips. It really is. It's time for you to begin experiencing more of what you've put there. But here's the thing. Experiencing more of what you've put there would feel good. But you got to feel good before you can experience more of what you've put there. But experiencing more of what you've put there would feel good. But you got to feel good before you can experience more of what you've put there. And so when you start doing whatever you do for the feeling in it, rather than for the result, and that's what's tripping you up in this question. Because in your impatience about how long it's taking, there is evidence of resistance that makes us want to say, that's why. That's why. So impatience is the indicator. Well, what's causing the impatience? Awareness that it isn't done. So why is it taking so long? That's why. But wouldn't I be crazy if I didn't have some awareness of where I stand? Well, it's a wonderful thing to have awareness of where you stand, but you've got to be clear about where to put the emphasis. In other words, what's dominant? This is the question that you're helping us to ask. And this is a question that as you reach for the answer of it will serve you extremely well. So the question is, What's dominant in my vibration, my desire or my belief? Well, if my belief and my desire are the same, then isn't that obvious? What I desire and what I believe are exactly the same. And so then what happens? There's no time separation. When I desire it and I believe it, it already is. But if everything already is, then you're dead in a way there isn't dead. So you want to embrace the fact that the gap is a good thing. There's always going to be something you desire that hasn't manifested. That's why there's all that joy in that journey. So a diminishment of impatience is a good thing. Well, how do you diminish impatience? By anticipation. How do you get rid of impatience? By anticipating what's coming, by dreaming where it's going, by tasting the sweetness of the expansion, by not trying to do the impossible of getting it all done, by no longer looking for the marks on the chart, by no longer caring what anybody else thinks, by not keeping score, by not measuring yourself against anything else, by letting the only measurement be the measurement of how good you feel right here, right now. That's really helpful, isn't it? If we were in your physical shoes and we were just beginning to understand this, we would play that game. We would make a list. Esther remembers in Tucson, it was 1981 or 2, they had just moved to Tucson. And there were lots of saguaro cactuses, the ones that stand out in the desert and look scary in the night. And they're big and they're magnificent. And Esther said, ooh, I would like to take some of those home. And Jerry said, you just can't move those. You have to get a permit. They don't let you just take them home. And Esther said, anyway, how would you take it home? It doesn't even look possible. And they turned the corner. Now, they'd been there for over a year. They turned the corner, and someone was moving one on a big saguaro moving contraption. And Jerry said, instant answer to your question. An instant answer to your question. So then Esther's thought, was the answer already there? So Abraham conjured the question in us just to make us feel good? Did Abraham know that when we were going to turn the corner, we were going to have an answer to a question that we hadn't thought of yet? Well, yes, a little bit. And this is what we want you to hear from this. The problem and the solution happen simultaneously. The question and the answer happen simultaneously. When you create a problem, you are creating a solution. The question is, are you problem-oriented or solution-oriented? Are you in the receiving of the answer mode, or are you still asking the question mode? And both are good. Both are good. But when do you want to turn on the gas? Well, if you just want more information about something, then just keep asking, but why, but why, but why, but why? It'll get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Feel your way through this, you say. We would like to zap every one of you with an understanding that you stand in perfection right here and now, no matter how it looks to you or anyone else, because we've seen the effect of your life that has been causing that. And if we could just get that point across to you in a way that you could just sort of let go of your self-judgment that holds you back from all that you have become, then life would be sweet right now. But you know what? Life is never sweeter than when it's not been so sweet. Just like a meal never tastes so good than when you've been a little hungry for something. In other words, the contrast is just serving you enormously well. We agree with you. We think you are doing so well, but we also know that you are a magnificent and really particular creator. And we also know you will never get it done. And so the question that you've brought to this forum is, how can I be satisfied in my incompletion? How can I be thrilled about my flaws? And the answer to that is by understanding that the incompletion causes the completion, that the not knowing causes the knowing, that the confusion causes the clarity, and that it all mixes together, and that it's all a good thing. And what then happens is, as you discover your willingness to be really nice to yourself in that mix of vibrations, then you discover the deliciousness of being able to feel good about all others. The way you feel about society in general or at large is really the way you feel about yourself.